name is David Barbero, and this is a video about deploying a Blazor server web application to a Linux virtual machine using GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions is an essential CI/CD pipeline tool, and we'll get a holistic view of the setup by covering the slides outlined here, including interesting things like the use of Node.js to build the front end and the use of environmental variables. So at the outset, it's important to understand the general way the system is set up. So the code base is moved by the deployment pipeline onto a runner. The runner has the runtimes it needs, both the .NET runtime for cleaning, building, testing, and also has the Node, well, it gets the Node.js runtime installed, so it can also run the process to build the front end. So that's the build and test process happens, and then the published app is moved onto the server, which has 3 different virtual hosts, again, one for each environment, and it also has the runtime it needs. It only needs .NET to serve the Blazor app. So it runs in production there, and it also communicates with the remote database, which is also set up on the server in a enterprise application. It would be elsewhere, but it's also on the server. It does run 3 separate schemas for the 3 different environments, and ultimately provides access for the client to use the application on their machine. So this is the big YAML file that defines the GitHub deployment action. It's called deploy_prod YAML. It's 70 lines long, so it gets a little small to read. That's why I've pulled out the names of the 15 steps here beside the screenshots, to get a full sense of what happens. And I will go through the highlights of these jobs on the subsequent slides. So firstly, it's important to note that the YAML file defines the job. The job is called deploy. It defines the trigger. So basically, on push to the deploy prod, this workflow initiates. So whenever there's a change to deploy_prod, which the way we do it is we merge main onto deploy prod, and whatever is in main is then published through this workflow. So it also defines the runner. It runs on the latest Ubuntu. The server itself runs Ubuntu, so those match. Checks out the repository, and then there is this business of the SSH key, which is important to communicate with the server. The SSH key is stored in the secrets area of GitHub, so it's copied from the secrets area and then utilized here on the SSH key step. So, and then it's simply building on the runner and running all the tests using .NET commands. So that happens next. And then Node.js version 16 is installed, so it can be used to build the front end. The front end is built with Bootstrap 5, and there's a build command that npm lets us use. So it puts the CSS files in place by the use of Node.js on the runner. And then when the runner is finished with the publish command, the .NET publish command, it's time to move the files, and a package called rsync is installed on the runner so that there's more control over which files are used. And this very long one indicates that certain files are omitted. These are files that were helpful to have in the code base during development while the team was working, but we decided we need to exclude them on the publish workflow because we don't want them to conflict with what we've had installed on the server. Okay, so there are 3 different environments. So the environmental variables are defined in the app settings file, as is standard in a Blazor app. So there's app settings prod, app settings dev, app settings staging, and those are installed pre-installed and defined on the server, so there's a step in the workflow to make sure that the proper config is put in place based on the environment that we're trying to run, and then ultimately restarting the app, which is a systemd service. that's been defined on the server. So this is an example of what a job looks like when it's finished. This one that's highlighted is showing the test pass. And thank you for allowing me to walk through this workflow.